Hello, Rebels. This is Attorney Augustus Corbett, a.k.a. the Minister of Justice, and with me is
Attorney Chloe Corbett, a.k.a. the Duchess of Justice.
And we are the Defiant Lawyers. We provide legal analysis of trending politics, policies, personalities, and pop culture to empower you with information to defy this unjust legal system. Please, if you are not a subscriber to our channel, please subscribe and click the notification bell. We would love to welcome you into our legal rebel community. With all that said, hello, Chloe Corbett. How you doing this fine day?
I'm doing well, Dad. It's absolutely beautiful outside. I'm so glad it's a Thursday afternoon, and I'm ready to get into the topics for today. We're just going to be giving our rebels some updates on some pressing criminal trials and civil trials that are going on in the country today. We're going to be updating the rebels on the Ahmaud Arbery murder trial. There's some developments there. We're also going to be updating the rebels on the Rittenhouse trial. There's a lot of updates there. There's also a couple of new trial that we're going to be updating them on, which is the civil trial with the protesters in the Charlottesville incident. So we'll be giving them information about that. And finally, we're going to be giving them information about the Oklahoma governor commuting the sentence of Julius Jones. So I'm ready to get all into that right after this.
That Corbin and Corbett legal team fighting for the rights of the people. That father-daughter team investing in the youth when the system ain't treating them equal. Providing truth for our people, we able to reach them. So anytime you get accused for a crime and Lord knows you ain't do it, we here to get you through it. Exemplifying prudence and glorifying God, making sure you're compensated for other people's doings. Our vision is to be one of the best. We're small enough to focus on your matter throughout the neighborhoods of Dallas. Working constantly and making sure your rights are protected. A firm team of lawyers, aggressive, effective. A team that has your back in the courtroom. Two well-spoken black lawyers in the courtroom. Investing time and resources when it's evident that you were treated wrong. Now you walking out of Dallas courtroom with a settlement. Corbin and Corbett, the father-daughter legal tag team that has your back in the courtroom. Our purpose is simple. To obtain a favorable outcome for each client and glorify Christ.
All right, Chloe, so you told us exactly what we're going to be talking about today. And before we get into it, listen, how are you doing? Just what's up? What's up with Chloe Whitney Corbett, the Duchess of Justice? What's up with you?
I'm good. What people don't realize is that when we film these videos, we're filming them. You were just in court today. Doing a criminal case, yes, virtually. That's why I had a criminal case, yes, virtually. We have consultations later that we're doing, but we love doing this. We love providing information to the rebels. So I'm keeping busy. I'm good, but I'm also blessed and a child of God. So I cannot complain. How are you doing, Dad?
I am fabulous. I'm fabulous.
Yes.
I am fabulous. So, all right, we're going to get into this. There are some hot topics, and let me just say, almost as a disclaimer, there are developments in these cases every day, every second, every minute, and you know things change even as we're speaking. So we're trying to share this in real time, as close to real time as possible. But again, keep in mind, rebels, that these cases are moving fast paced. In fact, by the time we finish, there may be a verdict in the Rittenhouse trial. So we don't know. So let's start out with the Ahmaud Arbery trial. So, Chloe, basically the defense has started its case. So they are now presenting their case in chief, their defense of the three folks who killed Ahmaud Arbery. And one of the witnesses that they called, and it was no surprise to us that they would call Travis McMichael, because, you know, this is a self-defense case. And in most self-defense cases, the jury want to hear from the defendant. They want to hear his perspective, and the law sort of doesn't require, but the law, the way it's written in most self-defense statutes across the country, the jury has to look at self-defense from the perspective of the defendant. And so quite naturally then the jury should hear from the defendant. So it didn't surprise us that Travis McMichael was going to be called to testify. I watched a little bit of his testimony. Let me just quickly say, and then I'll hand it over to you. I watched his testimony and I had all kinds of emotions, quite frankly, watching his testimony. You know, I've tried to explain that as a criminal defense attorney, you know, I understand a lot of what the defense is doing and are ethically obligated to do. But then as an African-American man, I have emotions over there as well. And, you know, those comments that Kevin Gow, is it Gow? How do you pronounce his name?
Gow, or I don't know if it's Goff.
Goff. I think it is Goff. Yes. The spelling is Gough, I believe. And when he was singling out the black pastors, you know, I explained in the previous video, I can understand that as a criminal defense lawyer. If you got somebody who you in the courtroom that you think is prejudicing the jury or influencing the jury, I mean, you would be obligated to bring that point out to the judge. But just hearing him just talk about the black pastors, this and the black pastors that. What about just pastors? You know, why single out the black pastors? Black pastors have always been a integral part of everything that goes on in the black community. So, yeah, that made me feel some sort of way. Although, again, as a criminal defense lawyer, I completely understand it. Not going to rehash that. But just seeing Mr. McMichael testify, and at one point he started crying, you know, sort of shedding some tears. And the way they presented him, his defense attorneys presented him like he was almost like he's a police officer, you know, kind of tried to sort of qualify him as an expert in a way. I was like, wow. I mean, that is, again, offensive on one hand and sort of brilliant on the other hand, right? To try to get the jury to see that this is not a criminal. This is a professional. I mean, he was just doing what he is trained to do, having been, I think he was in the military, I think maybe the Air Force. I'm not sure about that. So they are just, you know, just doing everything they can, as they should, to get their clients acquitted. Now, at the same time, race is all up in this. In fact, race is in all of these trials. We don't want to spend all our time talking about race, but race just dominates so much of America, especially when it comes to the legal system. So anyway, one last thing. The defense asked the judge to admonish the prosecutor publicly. I think she asked one of the witnesses whether or not the witness thought it was worthy of the death penalty for somebody to be inside a house that they had no business being in, or was just, you know, should not have been in. And the defense thought that was a very prejudicial question and asked the judge to admonish the prosecutor publicly. Wow. So the defense is going for it here.
Yeah. And just to go back to the direct examination and cross-examination of Travis McMichaels and the defense strategy seemingly being trying to present Mr. McMichaels as being pro-law enforcement or having some type of law enforcement training, I think that can be a double-edged sword, because the little bit of cross-examination I saw from the prosecutor, she was focused on, so with this training that you had in the military and as a layperson, you would know that under the Constitution, every person in this country who are United States citizens have a right against self-incrimination under the Fifth Amendment. So she led her cross-examination with that. So I think that their strategy, the state strategy, is try to use them trying to qualify him as some sort of law enforcement expert against him, because his testimony is that when his father let him know that they supposedly saw the man who kept going into one of the houses in their neighborhoods, they just wanted to go out and speak with him, speak with Mr. Arbery. But anyone who knows that under the Fifth Amendment, we have a right against self-incrimination. We don't have to incriminate ourselves. So I saw that prosecutor at the start of her cross really hone in on that. So this training you received, you should have known that Mr. Arbery did not have to speak to you or answer any of your questions whatsoever under the Constitution. So I think it was brilliant of her to start with that mindset, getting that in the jury, and then going through, breaking down what he said on direct. So I think it could be a double-edged sword, with their strategy being trying to kind of show him as an expert with law enforcement issues. That remains to be seen. And it's up to the jury to give credibility to Travis McMichaels and really take into account in the weight of his testimony as well.
Well, we see clearly what the defense is doing here. Also, they are laying a record for appeal. And when I mention appeal, by the way, let me throw out one other trial that has been in the news. Let me mention one other thing about the Amber Guyger trial, one that we had here in Dallas of a white female police officer shooting and killing Botham Jean here in Dallas. And she was found guilty of murder, got a 10-year sentence, and she has appealed twice. And I read today that the appellate court here, a second appellate court, denied her appeal. So she will remain in jail for her sentence. I think she's eligible for parole 2024. So, and she'll probably get it, being that she was a police officer, had no record, et cetera, et cetera. But some of that depends on how much the Jean family will oppose it. But anyway, back to Arbery. So the defense is trying to lay a record for appeal. I mean, appeal if their clients are found guilty. Also, as a side note, I think a bunch of black pastors showed up today in defiance of Kevin Goff. I think they had over 100 black pastors who were scheduled to be at the courthouse today. I don't know if they're actually in the courtroom, but they were scheduled to be at the courthouse. What do you think about that, Chloe?
I think it's fine. I mean, the courthouses are open to the public, and all types of anyone should be able to come and view these trials. And it was actually Kevin, however you say his name, Kevin Goff. It was him who even brought attention to the pastors anyway. Most people would not have even taken account that Reverend Al Sharpton or Reverend Jackson were in the courthouse until he brought it up. And I saw that when the defense moved for mistrial after the prosecution rested, that again, he doubled down on the black pastor's comments. He kind of gave a half-baked apology saying, I didn't mean to offend anyone. I'm paraphrasing, but he still used that as a basis for the defense asking for a mistrial. So the apology came with a double down. Obviously, the judge denied the mistrial because now the defense is presenting their case in chief. But I have no problem with black pastors going and supporting the Ahmaud Arbery family with this trial or any other trial. Absolutely not.
And even the judge called one of Kevin Goff's comments reprehensible. I saw that. I think Goff made some reference to whether if Colonel Sander came in a white suit or something, and the judge said, look, that's reprehensible. So the judge has said several strong things to the defense thus far, saying that Kevin Goff's comment was reprehensible, also saying that there was some intentional discrimination in the selection of the jury. So the record is going to be filled with all kinds of things for the appellate court to look at. All right.
And let me just say one more thing about Travis McMichaels.
Sure.
And this is probably another defense strategy just on his appearance. I don't know. I'm sure you remember the pictures of when he was first arrested. He looked quite different. He looked kind of a mess.
Now he looks like a lawyer, right?
Now, yes, like some type of lawyer or defense expert. Yeah. So we know, and as defense attorneys, our clients' appearance are very, very important. we instruct them, cut your hair, make sure you dress up, your demeanor, because the jury is going to be looking at all of that to decide whether or not you're credible.
Yeah, and if they've been in jail, we got to provide them a suit and shirt and tie. I mean, we don't have to, but if we want to, give them any sort of credibility or make them look presentable and not like a criminal, we have to go out and get them a suit, shirt, tie, and all that, and also, sometimes they come in shackled. If they're in jail, they come in shackled. We don't want the jury seeing that as well. So, you're right to bring that up. They had him looking really spivvy. Okay, Rittenhouse. So, Chloe, let's talk about that a little bit. Let me just throw out this thing that the jury is still deliberating. Someone said on Facebook yesterday, a friend of mine said, well, the longer this goes, the more it looks like he won't be convicted of murder. And I said, no, based on my experience, when the verdict comes back fast, that tends to be favorable for the defendant. Okay, I mean, the jury's like, nope, we're not convicting him. And they tend to kind of do that kind of quickly. So the fact that it's going on for a while suggests that the jury is really taking this trial and the evidence very, very, very seriously.
Yeah, I agree. I remember I was prosecuting a case when I was a prosecutor, and after we did our closing arguments, the jury came back very fast, and I knew it was going to be a not guilty. So it typically is when the jury comes back pretty quickly. That means, at least here in Texas, everyone was pretty unanimous. There was not a lot of back and forth or wanting to review the evidence that was entered or admitted into trial. So that happened on my case. And I heard news reports that in the Rittenhouse trial that the jury is really asking for clarification on the drone footage. And they've indicated they're really focusing on that drone footage. And we know that the drone footage was the subject of a motion for mistrial that the defense did, because there was some hiccup about the quality of the drone footage that the state provided the defense. The defense was saying that they provided very low pixelated footage of what allegedly happened instead of the 4K footage that the state has. So they used that discrepancy to ask the judge for a mistrial. It wasn't granted, but the jury, they're honing in on that footage. And to me, that shows that they're focused on all of the evidence that was entered. They're wanting to make sure that they see every little minute detail and not just go based off of what they believe. So I agree with you that this could be some indication. If he's not found guilty of murder, it could be something lesser included.
That's what I think. Who knows? You never can predict the jury, but if it was an outright an acquittal on everything, I think that would have happened by now. So it sounds like they may be considering something. And then they may fool all of us and come back with not guilty, or it may end up being a hung jury. We just don't know. There's no way to really predict.
And that's really developing because they're in their third day of jury deliberation. So we could hear something in the next second or minute, sometime today or maybe even tomorrow. So it's a lot coming out of those jury deliberations. Well,
I keep looking to see if anything has come out since we've been doing this video, and it seems like there's nothing yet. So and we know that usually what happens is the jury will, at least here in Dallas, the jury will push a button back in the deliberating room, and it'll show as a red light in the courtroom, so we all know, okay, the jury has done something. They're ready when we see that red light, and so that's usually an indication that we got something, and everybody's nerves start getting frayed. I was
just about to say that.
Yeah. It's like, oh boy, we don't know what's about to happen now. You just don't know. There are some indications. I know there have been jury trials where when the jury would come back in and look me in the eye, one or two of them, that would usually indicate a good outcome. Really, that would usually indicate. But if they came back and wouldn't make eye contact with me, were looking down and looking away, or just would not make any contact with me, that usually was a one-word verdict, guilty.
Yeah.
We like those two-word verdicts.
Yeah. And one of my favorite things to do after the jury deliberates and comes back with their verdict, go and speak with the jury members. Sometimes in a lot of trials, at least here in Dallas or in Texas, you can go speak with the jury members after the trial is ended. And it's just amazing to get the insight on what they focused on, what was important to them. What could be improved, what you did well on. It's just so interesting and fascinating to speak with the jury after they give their verdict. I can't
count the number of times I'm thinking to myself as I'm listening to them, how did you end up on my jury? There's always some person who is sort of the star of the show, who was probably in the jury room, controlling the conversation, causing other people to fall in line. And that person's usually the one that got the most to say when we were talking to them at the trial. And again, how did you? And a lot of times, Chloe, we know that folks like that tend to try to be quiet and not answer our questions during voir dire. By the way, on the East Coast, they say voir dire.
I know. Yeah. Out here in Texas, we say voir dire.
Voir dire. Yeah, I had to change because, we're from the East Coast, and I came out here saying voir dire, and a jury consultant told me, Robert Hirschhorn, said, first of all, Augustus, you're going to have to learn how to say it out here for the Texans because he's from New York or New Jersey. He said the Texans are going to shut you down if you walk in the courtroom talking about voir dire. They're going to know you're an outsider. So it's voir dire. And so I had to train myself to say dire. Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
And one thing I want to say also about jury selection before we move on to our next two topics. What a lot of people don't know is that we want people who come in who are potentially will sit on the jury to talk. We want you all to talk. So that's why we ask as many questions as possible. A good attorney, a good trial attorney will not do all of the talking.
That's
he or
right.
she will ask questions and have the potential jury members be the one talking.
Exactly.
So we can hear what you have to say, what your beliefs are, what you think about certain topics. So keep that in mind too. If it's a good trial attorney, the trial attorney would be speaking less and having the potential jury members speak more.
Absolutely. That's right. And listen, you African Americans who, don't want to be on juries, listen, you need to be on juries.
Go to jury. Go if you get something in a summons in the mail to it. We need more black people sitting on these juries.
That's right.
One of the problems is that black people don't even go to even potentially be selected in some instances. Please, our system depends on it. Our criminal justice system depends on black people when you're summoned going to the courthouse to potentially be on juries. We need it.
Well, the Arbery trial, out of 12 juries, 11 are white, 1 black, in a county that's like 28% black. Yeah. In the Rittenhouse trial, from what it's reported that most of the jury members are white. I think there's only 1 black on that trial. I don't think that the percentage of blacks in this particular jurisdiction is as high as it is in the Arbery trial. But nevertheless, you're right, Chloe. Stop, African-American folks, stop ducking jury duty and start willingly going so that so that your voice can be heard in these trials. All right, so 2 other quick situations. I don't know a lot about this white supremacist trial that's going on in Charlottesville, but we all remember back in 2017 when the white supremacists, Nazis, Aryan nations, KKK, and all the other racist groups showed up and marched through Charlottesville in protest of removing a Confederate statue. I think maybe Robert E. Lee. I'm not sure. I think so. And a woman lost her life. Heather Heyer, I believe her name was. May she rest in peace. May her family have some peace over the loss of her life. I honor her for going out there and standing against racism and to the point of losing her life. So I put her right up there with Smyrner, Goodman. I think Cheney was the African American. So I put them all there together. They gave their life fighting against racism, fascism, and all of that. But a lot of people were injured because of that protest, and they have brought lawsuits against the white supremacists. So that trial is going on. I don't have a lot to say about it other than I hope they win. But yeah, but I don't know a whole lot about what's going on. I understand that the white supremacist defendants are representing themselves and using the opportunity to propagate their racist propaganda. But I hope they lose and lose big time.
Me too. I hope the plaintiffs get a huge verdict from these groups.
Yes.
So we'll keep you all. If any big news comes out of that, we'll keep you all abreast, either on our community page or our Facebook pages. Make sure you all have the most up-to-date information about that trial too.
And finally, we just want to express our happiness that the governor in Oklahoma has granted clemency to Julius Jones in Oklahoma. Mr. Jones was convicted and sentenced to death for the 1999 murder of Paul Howard. It was a carjacking. Mr. Jones has maintained his innocence. There was a co-defendant and a couple other people who were sort of involved in this whole situation, but Mr. Jones maintained his innocence, and there was apparently some bad lawyering that went on. A lot of witnesses were not called. All of it together caused the parole board there in Oklahoma to recommend his clemency twice, actually. And a lot of celebrities got involved. Baker Mayfield, the quarterback from that state who played football somewhere there in Oklahoma. I should know, but I don't. I'm trying to think, but I can't remember. Or he's from the area. He's either from the area or played football in the area. I think I don't know. But I know him. He went on to play in the NFL. What's her name? Kanye West's wife, Kim Kardashian West.
Yeah.
Yes, she also got involved in a whole lot of other, the basketball player who plays with the Golden State Warriors, the light-skinned brother that can shoot those threes real good. What's his name?
Oh, we should know this. Ooh, we're going to get roasted. Don't roast us, guys.
I know
exactly who you're talking.
Yeah.
Steph Curry.
Steph Curry. And I know the whole family. I mean, I don't know why. Look, I'm getting up there in age, okay, you all? I don't know what Chloe's excuse was, but
I don't got none, y'all. But yeah, we know.
Yeah,
Steph
I know
Curry.
the whole family. Steph Curry, Seth Curry. I remember his father when he played. I think
Dale Curry.
Exactly. So look. I don't know why I drew a blank there, but him, I believe, got involved. A whole lot of celebrities, and fortunately, the governor granted clemency, which means that he will not be paroled. He'll stay in prison the rest of his life. In fact, that was one of the conditions that the governor included in his grant of clemency. So he's not coming out. We must say that the family of Mr. Howard is very, 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 sad that he was not put to death. They felt like justice would have been served only if Julius Jones had been put to death. And I won't get into that. Let me just say that I am opposed to the death penalty. There's just so many reasons for me, primarily as an African American, to be opposed to the death penalty. Mm-hmm. And it has a lot, Chloe, to do with the fact that there is a lot of racial bias in the criminal justice system. All right, from racial profiling to keeping blacks off juries to prejudiced, biased judges, prosecutors, and it just results in a disproportionate percentage of blacks being on death row, especially when the victims are white. Okay, and so I'm just opposed to the death penalty. I'm opposed to it. I'll say it. Put it on the record.
I am too. I mean, there's just so much unreliable eyewitness testimony. A lot of people are convicted on circumstantial evidence without direct evidence linking the defendant to the crime. Biased jury people who may not have really looked at the evidence on the case. So I'm opposed to the death penalty as well. I'm opposed to a lot of I'm how do I want to say it? I really support prison reform. And I think that a lot needs to be done to reform our prisons and our penitentiaries. I think there's a lot of unfairness and racism that comes into our prisons. I think a lot of prisons need to be abolished, except for the most extreme and violent criminals. But we can talk about that or debate that on the verdict, or or talk about it on another video. But there's an attorney that I follow on social media, and she kind of says that she is a prison abolitionist. I'm kind of in that same vein, to take her slogan. So yeah, I'm against the death penalty, and I think a lot of prison reform needs to be done in the system too.
Okay, so you let's see here. I'm trying to see if you want to make that the subject of the verdict today.
I would prefer we make it a whole video, actually.
Okay.
So I can.
Okay.
We can have a well thought out debate
okay.
and conversation about it.
Okay. I'll just respond very quickly and say that I too am in favor of prison reform. In fact, I'm in favor of criminal justice reform, not just
yes.
prison, but from policing to prosecution to probation to juries. The whole ball of wax need to be reformed in my mind. So I'm with you, and I agree too, especially with prisons, especially with the private prisons, right?
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, why would you allow someone who's motivated by profit to run prisons? I mean, that has problems from the jump street. So I'm with you, but there is a generational gap. You are a millennial. I'm not a millennial, so I have some of the old school ways. I think that's what makes this show a little bit interesting, because that's why we included the verdict, because there are certain times we're just going to see things differently. So abolishing prisons altogether,
most of them, not all of them. We need some, but most of them, because this prison industrial complex, it's just the way that a lot of it, like you were saying, that the private prisons are based on money, and the way that a lot of these small towns, they're literally dependent on these private prisons, which is why a lot of times they're refusing to close them and keep opening new ones, because the town's economy is based on that prison, and it's based on keeping a lot of black people captive, because we know that according to the 13th Amendment, once you're convicted of a felony, you're a slave again. You're not free again. So there's just a lot that goes into it.
Well, the first one that comes to mind to hear and hearing what you say is Rikers Island, right? Yeah. In New York City, and Angola down in Louisiana. That comes to mind. So look, I don't go as far as you go, but I'm there with you. I mean, what can I say? We see this every day, folks. If if you all see what we see every day in the legal system, especially in the criminal justice system and throughout the legal system, you would understand why we are the Defiant Lawyers. You would understand why we are raising up a community of legal rebels. You would understand why we are civil rights lawyers as well, and why we are very vocal about social justice, racial justice, reform of the criminal justice system, because the stuff we see is heart-wrenching every day. And it's what we spend our lives and careers fighting every day. So,
Yeah.
all right, Chloe. So I think that we've covered everything we wanted to cover in this update. We did it as quickly as we could. Again, let me take a real quick look to see if a verdict has been reached in the Rittenhouse trial. I don't believe so. As of right now, I don't think so. I'm going to CNN, but I know CNN can be a little late on things. And
Yeah, I was gonna say you should probably go to Twitter.
Exactly.
'Cause Twitter.
That's what I was
That's
about
where I
to say.
check everything.
That's what I was about to say. Social media tends to be ahead of main media nowadays. So
While you're checking that, and before we get off really quickly, I do want to say that I want to send my prayers to rapper Young Dolph's family. He was gunned down in Memphis, Tennessee yesterday. I don't know if you've ever heard of him, Dad. He was apparently gunned down outside of a cookie store. He's from Memphis, Tennessee. So I wanted to send my prayers and thoughts to his family and kids. He had 2 young kids. So our prayers go out to his family.
And just anytime we see the loss of life, especially of young black men like that, so many young black men. In fact, I've lost 2 young black men in my personal immediate family, 2 younger brothers. But again, may he rest in peace, and may his family have some peace as well. And so, Chloe, I think that is all that we have. Is there anything else? I believe that's it.
I think that's it.
I
Yeah,
think
that's it.
I think that's it.
Rebels, I encourage you all to go. If you can't watch the YouTube video, we're posting all of these episodes on our podcast as well. You can find our podcast, The Defiant Lawyers, on Spotify, Amazon Music, on our website, the defiantlawyers.podbean.com. Or you can go to our website.
iTunes, and Pandora.
Oh, I can't forget iTunes. Lord knows I'm an Apple fangirl stan. So it's on iTunes as well. You can find us there. We're going to be uploading Wednesdays or Thursdays of every week, and Saturday as well. We're going to keep you updated on all of the trending politics, policies, personalities, and pop culture. We're glad that you're on this ride with us. Continue with us because there's a lot more coming.
Yeah, so
with that, I think we're done.
Okay.
Peace.
I think the crowd is pleased, Chloe. I think the crowd is
like
pleased.
Yes.
All right, so we are out of here. Peace, soul,
Bye.
and love.
Yes.